In this episode, we will discuss what is expected of you before the class, during the class, and after the class. If you were to follow this advice promptly and accurately, you will excel in this course. So there is a popular misunderstanding that the physical chemistry is very hard to learn. But in fact, it's not necessarily so, or it need not to be as hard as it appears to be. It can be simplified or made easier to work with if you were to break it down in different portions and do them before and after, during and after the class in the following manner. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to think about the class, we're going to experience the class, and we're going to reflect on the class. So these are the three primary functions we're going to do. And so I have now shown in the next slide specific tasks that you need to do in order for this to flow smoothly for each and every class for your guidance. And so by the end of this episode, you will recognize how best to utilize your time and talents in this course. You get the best grade possible, best learning experience possible, best benefit possible and best experience possible out of this course. And so, as we said before, what you should do before you actually physically come to the class. I mean, this is a very important thing. And I'm quite sure that you're aware of this. You've already done this before. You have made it this far. So you know exactly how you want to utilize your time and talents. However, I'm going to review for me, for you, for others to say, well, it's the same sort of a deal that you have done before, but these are the specific details that I would suggest you follow if you didn't before. And this may add on, and you may have your own tricks and the trade to excel, but add this to that list of items. So before coming to the class, you need to prepare for the class. So that's because lecture is only one way of teaching and learning. And there are a lot of things that you need to do as an active learner in order to get the best of the class. And you need to do this before you come to the class. So first thing I would say is expect to spend more time than you normally would do, because this is a course that is a little difficult to do. And you may have done some of these in undergraduate class, but maybe not. And so I would say it's a 3 credit course, so at least 9 hours a week you need to work on it. Maybe sometimes it will take more, and depending on depth of your background on these specific topics. Read the syllabus, know exactly what's going to happen in the next class. And we normally don't deviate from our schedule. We will very strictly follow the syllabus and the schedule. And so you will not be way off if you expected something to happen. And it would happen very likely. And before coming to the class, read the book. Read the book that is supposed to be covering the topic of interest. And sometimes there is no book to read because we have advanced topics coming along. And so in those cases, go onto the internet, read Wikipedia or something else. But remember, Wikipedia is not completely reliable. And so it's just a guide to begin, or even to look at some of the vocabulary terms, language that needs to be used or will be used in the lecture topic. So you have some idea what that means. And if you're reading a book and then take notes or highlight in the book with a pencil and write questions right in the book, so that you can look for the answers for those questions that you did not already have by this point. So it's always an important component to read before you come to the class. Read whatever and watch whatever to come before you come to the class, so that you're prepared as to what to expect, and how to interact if the material is presented to you in the class. So familiarize with the terms, concepts, examples, units, equations, etc., etc. But at the same time, don't get bogged down on a certain detail that you didn't quite catch, and because that's what we're going to do in the class. So something that is difficult to understand, something difficult that you couldn't follow through or you had a doubt about, we're going to address that in the class. So don't get hung up too much on it, but make every effort to get a fairly good understanding of what's going to happen in the class. You write down the questions even before coming to the class, because you read it, you try to understand it, you have certain questions in your mind, write them down. It's not that you won't ask these questions in the class. Perhaps those questions will be answered during the regular class. You may not even have to ask them. But very important thing is to write while you're reading. And so this is a very, very important thing. Read and write simultaneously. So this is an important trick in assimilating the information, and because these tasks engage different parts of the human brain, and therefore the assimilation is much greater, and so it's like a second order reaction. It depends on the reading and depends on the writing, and so you multiply the two, so you get much better rate of understanding and assimilation of the material. And it has been shown through several experimentations, and it's a multimodal learning. That's what they call it. And so hearing, reading, writing, listening, and so these are all different aspects of the same, and so different parts of the brain are utilized while these activities are going on, and therefore people say that you assimilate much better, you will be able to recollect much better, you will be able to understand much better. And so this will facilitate your understanding and catching up with the course. Figure out the current topics, build on the previous ones. So this is important. So reflect back. So, okay, this week, this class, we're going to do this. How is this related to the previous class? Previous class, we learned this. And so how is this related? Usually, every class is building on the previous class. And that is building on the previous class. That's building on the previous class. So it's kind of a chain process. So finding this connection between class lectures, adjacent class lectures, is very important. And sometimes they're non-neighbor connections. So the class 3 may be related to class 1. So try to make connections between current class, current content with the previous and earlier content. And this is the best way to assimilate and relate, understand much better. Also try to connect what you already know from other courses or previous years onto the material you're learning. And that also helps you assimilate the material. So that you do all this even before coming to the class. And that's really important. And one more thing you need to do before coming to the class is, of course, finish the home assignments and questions to be asked. And if you have an exam to be prepared, you have to give an oral exam, or oral presentation, or you have to do your writing assignment. And so do all this before you come to class. This is really important to make sure that you're doing what you need to do before you arrive in the class. So that's the key. And when you, of course, come to the class, you're prepared to bring a pencil and paper, a laptop, etc. You come to the class. So don't come to the class without these implements that you might need to take notes. So now, once you're prepared and you now arrive at the class, what do you do? Well, the class is really important to discuss. Attend the lecture. Half of life is showing up, somebody said. And that's really true. Even if you're not feeling so great and tired or something, do come to the class, and because that will cheer you up and show you a few things, and you see your friends, and you talk to me or ask questions, and participate. It's really, try to put you up into a better mood, and you learn something that you may have missed. No, remember, you paid for this, or somebody else has paid for this class already, right? So, for example, you bought a ticket for a rock concert, $80 or whatever it is, and would you not show up for the rock concert just because you have a mild headache? Of course not. You're going to pop in a aspirin or whatever it is, and you're going to run uh, to the show, and you're not going to. Same thing here. You can figure out how much you are paying for each class. There are 27 classes. You know the tuition, and you can divide one over the other. You know how much it is. They're not cheap. They're pretty expensive. Whether you pay it or somebody else, it's money paid in the end. At the end of the day, and so this is really key. Not just because you paid for it, but because you really need this stuff and you can benefit from this stuff. It's an investment in your future. It's an investment in your future. You already paid for it, and so that's the beauty of it. You should come to the class because of that. Pay attention while you're there. So now you're here in the class. Focus your mind on the lecture. Be calm. Be focused. As if you are in a meditative state. Be prepared to receive the information and the knowledge and challenges while you're sitting in the classroom and listening to your friends and me and whatnot. And so this is really, really important to pay attention, full attention. Don't try to text and answer something this or that on Skype or call or something, but put full attention onto the class material, and that's really important during the class period. Take notes, and writing and listening and is very, very important. And you can read back and forth after once you've written it till the whole material digests and settles down. And so different parts, as I mentioned before, different parts of the brain engage simultaneously, puts a better cognition. And so that's really, really key to enhance your learning experience. And when you're writing, make sure you have extra space written out and given out here and there so that you can write examples, you can write comments, you can enhance your notes. Use different colors, one color for class notes and one color for your comments, another color for questions and examples given. Maybe somebody asked a question, you want to write that down and write the answer. This way your notes becomes enhanced, and when you read it again later on, things get clearer and better in your mind. And so taking notes is really, really important. The class will go at certain pace, but then you need to figure out how to write it at that pace. And we don't go breakneck. We will never go at breakneck speed, but we go fairly fast enough. So you really have to figure out, and I'm sure you did already. By this point, you already done this stuff. And so I'm just reminding you how to use this stuff. Not that you don't know any of this. So, and then while you are in the class, participate, ask questions, volunteer answers. And that's really important because you contribute to the discussion of the class. You enrich the class experience, and you benefit, and also you give benefit to the other people in the class as well. So a lot of the time the discussion is not taking place in the class, in a face-to-face class. This is one of the very important things. I would like to see whether you understood what I'm saying. That, and if not, if you ask, I will repeat it and I will try to guess whether you're catching on or not. And so I can give a different example, or I can explain it differently, or I could do something to try to help out. And so, but if you don't ask a question, I'm not sure whether you understood or you have a question or not. So it's really important to communicate back, give it some feedback to me, so I could try to adjust the class material so it becomes more useful to you. And that's the whole idea of sitting and talking and listening and viewing and all that sort of thing. So this is really, really important to participate. And so, as I said before, ask questions, volunteer answers. Others may have the same questions, but not asking. So if you ask the question, you're doing them a favor. And so this is really important, asking questions. Because when you ask a question, I know you're thinking about it. I know you're paying attention for that. So it doesn't matter whether you know the answer or not, right? In fact, you ask questions, but of course, for which you don't know the answers. I mean, why would we ask a question we have an answer already, right? It doesn't make any sense. But I would say ask questions with diligence. Ask questions in a thought-provocative manner. Ask questions that will help you and others to understand the material. Ask questions of clarifications. So does this mean this way? Ask questions if there are contradictions in your mind about the things that we're talking about. Don't bury them, just pick them up. Do not assume that you're supposed to know the answer, so you should not ask. Well, unless it is really elementary, right? We're going to answer those questions for you. And if it is too elementary, we'll say, okay, we'll talk about this after class. It's not a big deal. It's okay. If we don't know certain things we need to know, we will discuss and we will try to know those answers. So no questions are really too small or too big or too complex, and we should address as many questions as we can as the time permits. And so what if you cannot attend the lecture? If you cannot attend the lecture, then it's entirely your responsibility to make up the missed work. Entirely. So what does this mean? This means, you go to the online, or you go to your classmates, you go to the book, find out what has been done and how to figure this out and try to understand it and, get a feedback from classmates. Your classmate may be happy to explain it to you, right? And so, put effort into learning the material that you have missed. Find out what was announced, if there are any new assignments to give, and any problems are worked out, what is to be done for the next class, and be on the top of things. You say, well, I didn't attend, so I don't get. No, it doesn't work like that. So you're still responsible, even if you missed a class, for the things that you're supposed to be doing in the next class. So it's entirely your responsibility to make up the missed work. And so what do you do after the class? So you prepare, you listen, and you go home, or you to dormitory. So what do you do after you have attended the class? This is also very important. A lot of the time we don't pay attention to for this, but sometimes you do. But I would emphasize that, this is a really important activity. After the class, what do? You can say, well, isn't it the same as before? Well, it is not the same as before the class. It is different because you've gone through a certain experience, certain process, and therefore now you need to go back and reflect on that material. And that's what you're going to do. Reflect on the material you have gained from the class. Work in groups or teams. This is really important. Find a friend that is interested in discussing the class material with you. And we try to put up teams. If there are enough people, we make teams, and then the team members can interact with each other. Collaborate, discuss, right? And work out the problems together. And when you write an assignment together, but make sure what you submit as your assignment is unique and has not anything to do with others. Means that the language, you can discuss the ideas, you can discuss the problems, etc. But you got to be your own language. You got to be your own thought processes, and your flavors have to come out into your assignments. You can't simply Xerox and give, yeah, we work together, so here is a Xerox copy. No, I can't take that as an assignment. So not cut and paste from websites, books, and a whole bunch of other things. You got to be your original material. You own the intellectual property as such, and that's how the institute. So you need to do this after the class. It's better to do this right after the class, the same day, because the material is fresh in your mind. So now you can solve the problem. Now you can do the assignments. Now you can do preparation for the next class much better, and then several days later. So work hard and right after the class, and so read the book, play the video, update your notes. And so you may have left some blanks in your notes, and fill them up now, and look at it, see what questions that you wrote before the class have been answered during the class. And as you read through the book again, you may be able to answer some more questions out of that. So So if whatever remains, any questions, any doubts you may have, any gaps you may have in there, you can now discuss with your group and run by them. Somebody else in the group may have understood this better, may have a better angle on this one. And so you help others and receive help from others at the same time. And finally, if nothing works, even if the group cannot answer it, and you bring it to the class in the next class, and we can work this through at that point. So do the problems, and particularly worked out examples in the book. That's extremely useful. No matter which book it is, most books have worked out examples. And so if you go through those worked out examples, then you know how to attack a problem, how to pull it apart, and how to look at it in different ways, different angles to answer it. And there's no specific way to solve a problem. There's no specific answer for most problems. And most problems have varieties of answers in physical chemistry. It depends on how it is being solved, and so on. We can look at that later. And so a lot of the time there are answers at the end of the book. Sometimes there are no answers at the end of the book. And so you really have to figure out whether you did it right or wrong. And there are ways to check that. There are ways to check if you did it right or wrong. And that's really important. After you've worked out, you need to find a way to figure out if you did it right or wrong. It should make sense after you have done this. So for example, if you get the bond length to be 700 meters between hydrogen and chlorine atoms in HCl molecule, obviously that's not correct. And so you need to think about it and say, hey, there's something, maybe instead of 10 to the minus 10, I've written 10 to the plus 10. So that can throw off and give you a wrong answer. So a lot of the time you want to go back and reflect on the answers that you gotten before, move further and say, does this make sense? Yeah. So it has a minus sign or a positive sign, or is it order of magnitude away, or what is the deal? So you could check that out. And any unresolved problems you discuss with the group first, and then you can bring it to the class. Group first, class next. This is really important. And I want you to collaborate. I want you to discuss. I want you to spread the questions and answers, and understanding interactions within the class needs to be worked out. And then bring it to the class period, and then we'll work them through in the class, or maybe after the class. We don't know how hard it is to do those things. Do the assignments the same day as given, as I mentioned to you before, because everything is fresh in your minds. You have the best chance of getting the best answers out of that. So in summary, before the class, keep up to date on reading and viewing the videos if they're available. Work out the problems and assignments and bring them to the discussion if necessary. So during the class, pay attention. That is the most important. Pay attention. You paid for it. Take notes and do not just listen. Always, when you're reading or listening, take notes, because that puts stuff permanently in a piece of paper. You can go back to it again and again and again, look at it. So you simply listen, you may forget. You may not pay, maybe you didn't pay attention for certain details, but if you've written, you can catch them. And after the class, reflect, work in groups, reiterate the learning goals, and then, of course, prepare for the next class. So quiz 3, what is required during the class? When should you do the assignments? Is it necessary to interact with others in this course? So there's 3 key questions, right? 3 quick questions. And the answers, of course, you need to pay attention during the class. That's all we're asking. Pay full attention. Pay full attention during the class. Of course, you've been told this many, many times. And of course, if it is interesting, you will pay attention. If it's not, you're not going to pay attention. So if it's not interesting, make it interesting. Ask a question, right? And make it interesting. Give an example. Make it interesting. Make it challenging. So you can change the level of the course, and just like that, and you'll be amazed how much you can contribute to the class while you're in the class. When should you do the assignments? Before the deadline. That's what else, right? Yeah. Is it necessary to interact with others? Yes, very, very important to interact with the others. And this is how you know what mistakes they're making, you know what mistakes you're making, you exchange, oh yeah, that's the problem. No, no, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this, do this. So everybody has figured out certain ways of interacting and certain ways of learning. And you can learn a lot from learning how they are learning, right? And so this will enrich your experience in this class.